Okay, 3.1, day 2, we're going to be finding zeros. We've done this before. We're just going to officially write down some of the directions and then mix up the methods a little bit. Okay, so for this chapter, we're using quadratics, which is why I have f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. But it could be any format, and this is still going to be true. Okay, if they ask you to find the zeros, all they're asking you to do is set the equation equal to 0 and then solve for x. If they ask you to find the roots of a quadratic equation, or any equation actually, all they want you to do is solve for x. And if they want you to find the x, they still want you to set it equal to 0 and solve for x. The only difference is when you write your answer, it'll be x comma 0 because x-intercept is an ordered pair. Okay, so this is all things we've done before. We're just officially telling you that this is what it's asking for. So for the first example, it says find the zeros. So if I want to find the zeros, I set the equation equal to 0. I solve for x. So let's set this equal to 0. Okay, now in terms of solving quadratics, we've reviewed factoring and square root. So whichever method works best for you at that situation is what you're going to want to do. This looks like factoring. So let's go ahead and factor it. X to get negative 28, that's got to be 7 times 4, negative 7, positive 4. So I'm going to solve for x, and I got x equals 7 and x equals negative 4. Okay, so when you find zeros, your answer should be x equals, x equals. You have to write equals 0 here or here for it to be an equation. So the most important thing, when you're finding zeros, make it equal 0. Okay, B, I'm going to still make it equal 0. If you don't like the 0 on the left side, you could also put it on the right side, like that. Doesn't matter to me. Okay, x squared minus 25 equals 0. Solve whichever manner you would like to. This factors pretty easily, but it also square roots pretty easily. I'm going to go ahead and factor it because I see it's going to be x plus 5, x minus 5 equals 0. And my answers are x equals negative 5 and x equals 5. I'm finding the 0, so I'm solving for x. I made sure I wrote equals 0. If you want to do square root, I would add the 25 over to here, and then I would square root it, and I would get positive and negative 5, which is the same answer. Okay, let's look at C. Same, find the zeros. Okay, I have to set it equal to 0. It doesn't matter if you put it on the left or the right. I'm just switching back and forth. Now, how do I want to solve this? Ooh, I think I have to do factoring. Okay, you can guess and check. You can do your V, your box, not your V, your X. Let me think. Is it going to be 1 times 7 or 7 times 1? 3 times x, 3x squared plus 3 times, I want that to be 7. So that's 21x plus 1x. Okay, so I get x equals minus 1 divided by 3. X equals minus 7. Okay, one more. I'm going to still make it equal 0. Okay, and again, 0 can be on the left or the right. Let's see, there's no c value. Let's take out a common factor. I can take out the x for sure. I can also take out the 2x. So 2x times x, 2x times 3. So x equals 0 and x equals positive 3. Okay, so when you're finding zeros, make sure you set the equation equal to 0, and you have to write it. Solve for x, so your answer is x equals or x equals, but you can use square root or you can use factoring. I happen to use factoring on all of those. Okay, now the next direction says find the roots. If you look above, find the roots means solve for x. So I'm going to solve for x. Okay, these are all quadratics because this is the quadratic chapter. To solve a quadratic, I can square root or factor. See, x squared minus 11x equals negative 18. That looks like a factoring problem. To factor it, I need to equal 0. So let me cancel something off. X squared minus 11x. This looks good. I'm going to cancel the negative 18 over. To cancel it, I'm going to add the 18 over. I'm writing this little step here, but you don't have to. So now it's going to be x squared minus 11x, and I'm going to bring down the plus 18. Negative 18 plus 18 is 0. So now it will factor. X to get 18. 3 times 6. No, 3 plus 6 is 9. 2 times 9. Yeah, 2 plus 9 is 11. Minus. So x equals 2 and x equals 9. And my answer is still the x's. unless the equation has a different variable. Let's look at b. Negative x squared equals 2x minus 15. I think I'm still going to factor. Now, what do I want to keep? Because everything's messed up. I don't like the negative x squared. I'd rather have a positive x squared. So I'm going to cancel negative x squared off this side and put it on this side. And you don't have to write the yellow part, but I'm showing it to you so you can see what I did. Okay, now on the right side, I'm going to put these in order so it's in standard form. So the squared goes first. That's a positive 2x, and that's a minus 15. Okay, now that's in standard form, let's see if we can factor it. To get negative 15, 5 times 3? Yeah, 5 times 3 plus 5 minus 3 gives me 2. So now I get x equals negative 5 and x equals positive 3 as my answer. Okay, and you can have more steps, but you can't have less. Okay, let's look at C. Are we going to factor this? We're not going to factor it. I see that weird x plus 5 squared thing in there. So we're going to use square root. I want to get this by itself. Let's add the 13 over. Okay, and the yellow steps you don't have to write, but I'm writing them for our notes. Okay, 5 plus 13 is 18. Let's divide by 2. X plus 5 squared equals 9. Are we ready to square root? Yeah, we're ready to square root. Okay. Square root, square root. The square root cancels the squared, so x plus 5 equals, the square root of 9 is 3, but I can also square a negative to get a positive, so this is positive and negative 3. Okay, let's subtract the 5 over. X equals positive 3 minus 5 is negative 2. And then negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. So I got x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 8. Okay, let's look at D. 3x squared plus 10 equals 11x. Because of the 11x, I think I'm going to have to factor it. Since this is positive, this x squared, I'm going to leave this alone and I'm going to cancel this over to this side. So I'm going to minus the 11x over to here. Okay, and then I'm going to put it in order. So the squared is first, minus 11x plus 10 equals 0. Now I should be able to factor it. Is there a common factor? No. Okay, so I'm just going to have to use, I'm going to guess and check. You can group x, box. What do I think? Let me just guess. Let's try 2 times 5. Let me think. 3x squared, 15 and x and 2x. That's not going to give me 11. Let's try again. Let me try 5, 2. 3x squared, 3x times 6x and 5x. That'll give me 11 if I make it minus, minus. Okay, plus 5, divide by 3, positive 2. Okay, let's look at the practice problems. They are mixed up. The first section is asking you to find the zeros. So go ahead and try them. Pause to check your answers. And remember, there's more than one method to do some of them. Okay, here's my answers for 1 through 4. Make sure you set it equal to 0 and your answer is x equals. All of these should have been solved by factoring so far. Pause. Pause when you're ready for the next 4. Okay, go ahead and check your 5 through 8. You do need to write equals 0 on the left or the right. Solve for x. Pause to check your answers. Unpause when you're ready for the next 4. Okay, here are your answers for the next 4. For 10, I added the 7x squared just because if you keep your x squared positive, it's just so much easier to factor. For 11, you could factor it or you could do square root depending on which method you prefer. Okay, pause till you're ready for the next 4. Okay, last 4 here. For 14, again, I added the x squared because if I keep the x squared positive, it's just easier to solve. For 15, I got x equals 2/3 twice, but you don't need to write it twice. Okay, pause to check your answers, unpause when you're done.